Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Just waiting for my mic to come on. Can you all hear me? Yes? Welcome to our fourth and final The Force is Female Leadership Speakers Series panel. We're so grateful to the National Coalition of Girls Schools for helping us live stream this nationally. And I just want to say, middle school, how are you feeling on this Friday before spring break? I'm glad to hear it. So we have a really dynamic panel for you today, and I hope you can sit back, relax, and try to find one nugget that you're going to take from today's panel and really let it sink in and carry it with you on spring break. It is my pleasure to introduce spectacular senior and student body president Maya Winkler.
Hello, middle school. It's so nice to see you guys. Happy Friday, happy almost spring break, and thank you, Miss English. We are so excited to be here today to hear from these absolutely fabulous panelists about how they've developed their own versions of leadership and what they've learned along the way. So, without further ado, we have some middle school representatives who are going to introduce our panelists. All right, let's do this.
Ms. Seligman is the co-founder of Tower 26, a communications and public affairs agency. She's also the former director of communications for Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. She has worked extensively on Capitol Hill and has fought for those who needed a voice in politics and public service.
Dr. Kaye is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and passionate educator. Currently, she is the chancellor of Fremont College. She is also committed to giving back to her community. Her service passions include founding the Sabrina Kaye Charitable Foundation. Dr. Kaye has received numerous awards, including Woman of the Year by the California Legislature, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame by California Association of Post-Secondary Schools.
Ms. Park is a real estate expert who focuses on commercial leasing in both retail and industry. She is the co-managing partner of the DLA Los Angeles offices and co-vice chair of the National Real Estate Practice Group. Ms. Park is also a representative to the DLA Piper's Law, the Leadership Alliance for Women.
Ms. Min is a media strategist and Emmy Award winner. She has 2 National Magazine Awards and 2 nominations for Magazine of the Year. Ms. Min was the editor-in-chief of Us Weekly, which she remade into an overwhelming consumer and advertising success.
Selig, my mom, is a co-founder and producer of Shake and Bake Productions. She is an entrepreneur and executive with 20 years of experience in media, real estate, and startup communities. She founded Shake and Bake Productions and Valis Studios to finance and produce independent studio movies. Formerly, she has been an executive at Microsoft and a board member of the XPRIZE Planetary Resources, an Institute for Learning and Brain Science.
I so messed up so badly.
Ms. McCreary is the CEO of Revelations Entertainment, a film and television production company she and actor Morgan Freeman started in 1996. As the CEO, Ms. McCreary serves as the executive producer of National Geographic's The Story of Us with Morgan Freeman and the event series The Story of God with Morgan Freeman. Ms. McCreary is also a UCLA-trained computer scientist and is helping to bring Hollywood into the digital arena.
Thank you so much to our presenters. Hello, ladies. I am so excited to be here with you all today. Our first couple of questions we can just go down the line and each of you can answer. Can you share with us in a couple of couple of quick words. What draws you to be with us today? Whoever would like to begin.
I'm happy to go. Again, I'm Naomi Seligman. You guys can sort of remember, you probably have to hear it a couple times. I'm here because my life's work has been about empowering communities, empowering women, empowering minority communities, empowering those that need a voice. So what's really exciting for me to be here is to see all of these girls that are working hard to be their best selves. So it's very exciting for me to be a part of that.
My name is Sabrina Kaye. I grew up in South Korea where I had no choice but to go to all-girls school. And I didn't talk to any boys until I was 18 years old. And my daughter went to Marlboro, and I think the women friendship while you're going to school in middle school, you don't realize until you're fully grown how special this time is. So I'm really excited for you. I'm very privileged to be here to share our stories and hear other women as well.
My name is Jackie Park. One of the main reasons I'm here is because my husband's first cousin is Felicia Paik, your head of admissions. So at Christmas Eve, she asked me if I would participate, and I said absolutely. I grew up in the deep South, Alabama, which is very odd to grow up, and again, from a very traditional Korean family. And when I was growing up, my father said, you can do anything you want as long as you get married first. Very traditional. So when I went to college, I realized that there was much, much more in life, and so I decided to pursue my dreams, became an attorney. And the other reason why I'm here today is because we need more women lawyers. We have had a great pipeline of women lawyers graduating from law schools, but we are having issues developing them and keeping them and having them rise to the ranks of leadership. So one of my goals, not only professionally but personally, is to make sure that young girls like yourselves, look to your passion, look to figure out what your career is, and then try to pursue them. I have 2 daughters myself, and I have been very active in helping them pursue their dreams as well. So.
I'm Janice Min, and I'm in the Korean wing of the panel. And I am here because I really like Gracie Doyle, who is a family friend of ours, and but also because, I've been in media for a long time now, and I think that I would advocate for females to look at that as a career. There's probably no greater way to affect change, and to and as we've seen in the last several months, how effective that can be, but also to be represented in bylines and in editing and on camera. And I really believe in, I know something Gina Davis, who's I imagine has been to the school before, has talked a lot about, which is you have to see it to be it.
If you asked me a couple years ago if I thought my daughter or daughters would go to an all-girls school, I'd probably say no, but I've never seen my daughter happier than she is here at Archer. So I'm here, one, because of that, and also because I don't ever want any of the girls who are in this room to ever be told that they can't do something just because they're a girl.
Amen. I'm Lori. I'm here because I wanted to meet the future leaders in all industries. And I'm happy to meet these lovely women up here, but especially all you who can do anything that you put your mind to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today, all of you. We're so lucky to have this final Friday of spring break to talk. That's so fabulous. I think this is perfect timing. Our next question, and this is, again, short, zingy. We can go down the line. What is your motto in life, at work? You're choosing. What is your motto? You can go back that way.
Okay. My motto is, when a door closes, a window opens.
My motto is less of a motto and more of a way of thinking, and it really has to do with taking on every challenge that comes your way and thinking of it as a positive and not as a negative.
I don't really think I have a motto, but I think it would, if I had to make one up, it would be, don't wait to say something when you need to say it.
That's a good one.
Simple 2 words, work harder.
Mine is start at the top. And then work way up, because then you're just competing with yourself.
I've had the same motto since I was your age, which was I put on my graduation cap in middle school, which was dare to be you. You can't wake up and be anyone else, so you might as well own who you are.
We don't have graduation caps at Archer, but I would definitely embroider that in my flower crown that I'll wear in May. I think that's a good one. If you had to choose a superpower for a day, what would it be and why? Whoever would like to start. I know these are kind of tricky, right? These are good ones.
Actually, this is my favorite question, so I'll start. I want to learn anything in 1 hour because I love the process of learning. And if we can do it in 1 hour instead of doing 10,000 hours, it will save a lot of time. And you get to learn a lot.
What would be the first thing you would learn in that 1 hour?
How to dance.
I would say, this is going to initially be misconstrued, I would like to have the superpower to be male for periods of time, just to see what is being discussed and and just so you know what you're dealing with. And as a female, I think that would be incredibly illuminating.
You know, I'm going to follow up on that because I thought when she asked that question, I thought it'd be great to be a guy for a day, because I think that the shoes that we walk in, we all have a certain way of looking at things, and it would definitely be nice every once in a while to see how the rest of them are thinking, because I think that they definitely look at things differently. So I was going to say that, but I thought, no, that's just too weird to say. But so I'm glad you said it.
It would be very illuminating,
yes.
right? Yeah.
I think I would want to be a mind reader, or at least my superpower would be to have everybody be completely honest with you no matter what they're thinking. So it kind of goes along with your motto, if you have something to say, say it, but say it honestly.
I would love to have the superpower to allow people to dare to be themselves. Like if I could just impart it into every person, that you would wake up every morning and just be and be fulfilled.
I actually am sort of the flip side of where you are. I would actually like not to be a man, but to remain a woman and be heard. In every place, in every situation, to never be in a meeting again where I'm listened to and then a man says the same thing 30 seconds later and they think it's the most brilliant thing that's ever been said in the universe. That kind of superpower is like, well, you're recognized for the first time instead of having to say it 7 times before folks hear it, or hear it out of a man's mouth.
Can I tell a little quick story that follows up on that? So one of the first jobs I had was working for a music licensing company, and we had to become legal in 60 countries in 90 days, and I would get on the phone early in the morning to call countries in the Middle East to try to sort out the licensing issues. And it became a joke because every Monday morning we'd get on the phone, everybody in the company would come into the conference room, and they would sit down, and I would make a call to a country where, you know, they had some different thinking about men and women's roles. And I would ask questions, and they would say, we'd like to speak to the person in charge. And I would say, well, I am the person in charge. And it would quickly be followed up with, we'd like to speak to the man in charge. And I would put the phone on hold. This is before FaceTime and all that stuff, so they didn't know any different. And then everyone in the room would get real quiet, and I would hit speakerphone again, and I would drop my voice a little bit lower, and I would close the deal. I would like to think that, you know, like you were saying, that should not happen. But it was funny.
Did you ever confront them? Did you ever say,
no,
hey?
I didn't. I really didn't. And I probably should have, but at the time, I don't think I was confident enough to do so. I wasn't in the space to be able to do so. I didn't know enough about the people on the other side of the phone to be able to do so, but that is a good point.
Nowadays, does that ever happen to you?
It happens in a different way, and you know, a bunch of us on the panel all work in various parts of Hollywood, but it'll happen in the sense that you'll make a movie that's very female-oriented, or try to, and you'll be told, not really a movie that's going to get a good audience, but the same exact movie that's male-oriented, the same story with just guys in it, they're like, yes, we love it. So it happens in a different way.
In Hollywood, sorry. In Hollywood, I mean, I have a male assistant and a female assistant, and I often walk in with my male assistant, And if I don't know the room, they will literally walk up to my assistant. I love him, he's great, and introduce themselves. And he, with chagrin, says, "This is my boss, Lori McCreary." And it's awkward, but I let him do it because I want them to be awkward.
Right.
Because why would they assume that?
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I think, America has such great opportunity because as far as women's empowerment is concerned, that this is really one of the most advanced countries. If you go to any other country, the type of opportunities that America provides for women really does not exist. So we have really great opportunity here, and as women, you think about this so-called disadvantages or possible disadvantages, you look at that as a difference. Don't look at that as disadvantage and don't be victimized. Look at that as you're gonna work harder, you're gonna be more empowered, and you look at that as more of an advantage to take advantage of that difference and bring that diversity to the workplace.
It's just like any other difference we would have, whether it be sexuality, that kind of thing. It's really just something we can work off of. It shouldn't necessarily hinder us, and it's so frustrating when it does because it seems like an attack on half the world's population, but at the end of the day, there's so much more room to grow than there is to shrivel up. I'm sorry,
No, just say you can push back as a young person. When I was in the Senate, I was 22, working for a senator from Montana, who later became ambassador to China. And I remember I was hired as the press secretary, and 3 months later, the communications director quit, and I was the communications department for this U.S. senator, and I'd never been west of Springfield, Massachusetts, so it was Montana, what? And I remember what would happen is folks would come in for meetings, and I'd walk in the room, and they'd say, "Oh, I take cream and sugar," and I'd say, "I'm not going to take your meeting." And I literally would just push back and said, "I'm the person you're meeting with. I'm not the person getting you coffee. So you just decide who you want me to be, and I can decide whether I want to meet with you."
I think that's a really important point. I think that that you can't be afraid of making people uncomfortable. And I think when you see a lot of these stories that have come out in the last 8 months, I guess at this point, or 6 months, that you see different moments where a level of abuse was able to go on, and so many of the stories often had a similar theme. It was because you were protecting your career, but oftentimes you stopped yourself from confronting someone in a terrible situation in the room, and that, I am not saying that. Some of those things were so horrible that they were bound to happen, but I think in a much sort of more benign level, but it's still dangerous, is that, in a meeting, when you're out somewhere, when you're in your day-to-day interactions with your spouse, with your siblings, that you should feel totally okay as a female, which we are not culturally accustomed to making someone uncomfortable, instead of trying to make everyone feel good.
I think that's a good lead-in. This was a student-submitted question. Sometimes, we, as women, I feel like we need to tap ourselves on the back more than guys do sometimes. And so this question is, how are you a role model or mentor to other women, whether it be younger or, in your office directly?
So I'll start with this one. So again, being in the law world, one of the issues that we have is, we don't have enough female attorneys who are willing to stay in that role and to advance their career. And so one of the duties that I feel very, very strongly about is, because I have been practicing law for a long time, I have seen what it takes to rise to the top. I think that one of the most important things in terms of, I'm not a big fan of the word role model, it's just I think that optically, if other women can see themselves in your shoes, they can see the example that they need to, that they can follow, that is a powerful tool. It's not speaking, it's just being there and for them to see the future. So we are constantly trying, again, in the law field, to have women stay, and our attrition rate is atrocious at this point. And we have been working at this for a very long time to try to figure out how to get more women to own their career, to own the families, to own everything they want it to be, and yet figure out how to do it. One quick interesting story is that we have seen in the last 10 to 15 years an increase in women-only law firms, where instead of the traditional model of a law firm where you have, you start out 50-50 women, men, and then as you go up the leadership and hierarchy, there's, a disproportionate number of men, of women. Women have realized that there is a value in having a very female-oriented culture, like a all-girls school. It's an all-women law firm where there's much more flexibility. There's less stigma attached to taking time off to be with your child, to taking a maternity leave, to taking a reduced schedule. And so it's been a very interesting phenomenon, and I am very supportive of these women-only law firms because I think that there is a place for that in the marketplace.
I've taken a few tracks. I do more traditional mentoring with the New Leaders Council, so I have sort of younger women from diverse backgrounds that I'm able to talk about what I do day in, day out. Sometimes I just sort of adopt people as they come into my sphere. So when I just left the mayor's office and 6 months ago, and as young women would come in, either to interview or to intern, I said, what can I do to help? And I actually have maintained the relationships with a lot of the women that I interviewed that I didn't actually hire. And finally, I think for the women that do come in to interview, I help them with their interview and interview skills. So some of them don't have a proper, say, handshake. Some of them, most of them, when I ask them what they need to make, they say, oh, I'm just so happy to be here, and I'm just so happy. I said, the man before you said he had to make $102,000. So in order for me to give you a job, you have to give me a number. So let's figure out what you need to make, and then you're going to give me that number, and then I'm going to come back and tell you if you have the job. So that's a lot of, it's a little bit of tough love, I think, but I think they walk away with a skill set because someone did that for me when I was interviewing with Speaker Gephardt's office many, many years ago. They asked me what I wanted to make, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna work for the speaker, and I was so excited. And they literally said, the man before you had asked for X number of dollars, and they said, and you are first choice, but you have to know your worth. So I try to impart that to the women that I work with and see.
I think that probably the thing that I like to do, I'm reading, Tina Brown was this great editor and she's still a great editor, but of the 80s and 90s in New York. And I'm reading her this book, Vanity Fair Diaries. She wrote a memoir. And there's a line in there I love, which is basically about what it's like to be an editor, and that the whole way a successful outlet works is, and it can apply to all media, is you want to be a voice, not the echo. And I think in media, I think probably the thing I have done the best with the female staff, and I worked at the Hollywood Reporter for 7 years and did this remake of the Hollywood Reporter, and the staff at the time when I came, was almost all male. It's now 54% female. But I think it's about, and they're not all assistants, and I think it's about being, really showing people how you can question the status quo, both in sort of a practical sense of remaking something, but also question how you do stories. And it's it can be the most basic things. There was, I think, and it speaks to a lot of the nature of Hollywood, there were times, so let's say when we were producing issues or doing stories, where there were no females in the issue, and if there were females, they were actresses. And if they were actresses, they were dressed a certain way. And so this is the whole view of the world that is, that's being presented through a media outlet. So a lot of it was about being able to include actual stories about female executives, which had not amazingly been in the brand's DNA. But also thinking about how you talk about women, with the editors, and doing this with men too. How do you stop this language, who is 40, so-and-so who's 40 and still unmarried? Okay, you just don't, don't say that. Or calling someone, an all-American beauty because they're blonde and blue-eyed. Like just certain things that are so impactful in language. And for 3 years, I also oversaw Billboard, which I think has, and I think the music industry is totally untouched in whatever, and still to this day in what's going on in Me Too, and will definitely get its due. But part of it was like not how do we, when we photograph subjects, there's this whole culture of photographing female musicians like without pants on, and so The Weeknd gets to look super cool on his cover, but Demi Lovato or Selena Gomez has to be naked on hers, and it's a whole way that women are marketed through the world, and so how can you change the way that happens? So some of it was like, even young women who worked on the staff would immediately go to we would call the no pants photograph of a female celebrity on Billboard. So some of it was like, you can show Selena Gomez like stylish in a different outfit. You don't have to buy into this whole, and it's just questioning the status quo of like sexualizing young pop stars who then end up with a time limit on their career, because when they don't look like that when they're 40, their career's over, but Bob Dylan can look terrible till he's 80 and have a great career. So some of it is like just being able to show them, like being able to make them question their own assumptions about what has gone on in the world and how do you actually represent it differently.
I think I have some. Oh, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I work with a lot of my female mentees is really how to embrace your femininity. And I think women's empowerment have given us the ability to fight, but also have somewhat of a loss of that femininity. And I think it's really, really important for us to know the difference between men and women. And it's okay to feel fearful, and it's okay to feel insecure, because I think for me, like I told you, I was not allowed to talk to any boys until I was 18 years old, and first guy I talked to, I got pregnant in college. So talking about fearful and insecure in college, that was horrible, and I thought my life was totally over because I grew up thinking that only virgins can get married and no one would ever talk to me ever again. So it was like that type of insecurities and fear can actually give you a superpower. And it's okay to feel that, guys, I'm not being treated right. You're gonna do better. And I think instead of trying to fight so hard, really knowing the situation and reframing the situation so that it fits you. Like, for example, I had to start a business because I didn't speak any English, I had no money, no one would ever hire me. So I started a fashion business using technology, but it became Art Institute. And being a college president in your 20s without a college degree was not really a pretty picture. For me personally, I was very, very insecure, and all the other college presidents were 50-year-old white male. I should have felt really unfit in that arena, but I just didn't know any better. So reframing it and being part of the community and not separating and segregating yourself as a woman, but be a leader. Not a women leader, but a leader, because we are equal. And there are opportunities, and you just have to find that, and you believe that opportunities do exist. And everyone is embracing that now. And this is really, there's no time that has been better than now to be a woman and be a leader right now.
I think I have a series of questions that you will enjoy that I think they'll hit pretty close to home for a lot of our audience. What was your favorite subject in school, in middle school? Grades 6 through 8. What were you super, super passionate about at school?
Math. I loved math. I got to use math to build a golf course out on our school and figure out where everything went. And my professor, my teacher at the time showed me that math, you could apply it. I loved it.
Art, drawing, anything that involved singing, performance, anything like that. That's mine.
I guess I had two favorite subjects in middle school. I did journalism, And I loved history, and I ended up being a history major at college. And I think, and I will say, then again, trying to get all of you to go into journalism, I think that for me, it was like, if you're a curious person but also sort of shy, it gives you a lot of license to go out in the world and ask the questions under a disguise, right? And it's and eventually you become that person as a career. But anyway, that was a great way for a shy person to become less shy.
I think we tend to like things that we're good at, right? And if you're not good at it, even though you may like it, you're not going to be drawn to it. So I was a super good math student. I didn't really like it, but I was really good at it, so I guess that was my favorite subject. But once I got to college, I realized that calculus was way over my head. So I became a history major, but in middle school, I was great at math, so I really liked it.
My best and the favorite subject was Korean. It became totally useless when we moved to the United States. So I had to go to my second favorite, which was math, and I took a calculus class. But my very first calculus was my college class, because I didn't speak any English. And I already took calculus on the 11th grade. So when I took it sophomore in college, they all thought I was genius, because I never showed up because I didn't understand. And I got an A, and everyone wanted to be my friend. So math became like my favorite subject in college.
I love all these women who love math. I didn't. Still don't. I really loved social studies, anything about government, politics, sort of where I am now. It was a way that I connected. I had a really abusive household growing up, and it was a way I connected with my father, because he would, every morning I'd come downstairs and he'd be reading the newspaper, and I could talk to him about what was going on in the world. So that was that one sort of very shiny, safe moment. So it probably has a lot to do with what I do right now. That, and I loved choir and singing and voice, and I still love that, but I don't think I'm as good at it now as I did then, but I did love it.
It's nice to hear that your opinions can change, your favorite subject can change. I know when I was in middle school, my favorite subject was probably English, and I still love it, but now I'm realizing more and more that the world is so much bigger than an essay. And it's just, it's important for me to remember as I go to college, and for our middle schoolers, especially 8th grade, to remember as they go into high school. So thank you. Otherwise, outside of the classroom, what were you most involved with in middle school?
I was involved in theater. I did everything. My mom put us in theater. She was an actress up in Northern California, and we had, every weekend we were doing some performance of some play. Every 6 weeks it was a new play. My life, literally since I was 8 years old, was putting on stories.
I just wanted a job when I was in middle school and high school. I really did.
A job?
I wanted a job. I wanted to work. And I went and I lied about my age to get jobs so I could make money and do weird things. And I remember I was, working on movie sets in Seattle and wrote for a magazine and full on, should not have legally been allowed to do it, but I really wanted to feel like I belonged out there. So that's how I spent my free time. And I also loved hiking in the mountains, so I spent a lot of time rock climbing with my family and hiking and climbing and skiing and stuff like that.
What was your first job? And how old were you? Really?
Okay, so my first job really was working as a PA on a set called Mad Love that was shooting in Seattle. I was really actually 15 at the time, and it had Drew Barrymore and Chris O'Donnell in it or something like that, and I just thought it was the coolest thing on the planet. And my second job actually was a friend of mine made a bet with me. He was a freshman at USC Film School, and I was still in, I think, my second year or third year of high school. And he said, I bet you my name ends up in Variety before yours. And I didn't know what Variety was, but I really wanted to win the bet. And about a year and a half later, I moved to London. I was walking down Soho, and I walked by the old Variety offices, and I looked at the sign. I was like, I'm going to win that bet. And I walked inside, and I asked for a job. I said, I'm a really good writer, and I want to write about movies. And stupidly or shockingly, they actually took me up on the offer and sent me 2 days later to Berlin to write about movies that I got to watch, and I was maybe 16, 17 years old. And I wrote about Michael Winterbottom films, and I didn't belong at all, and I don't know what I was doing, but I was really having fun and thought it was, I thought it was just the coolest thing ever.
And you won the bet.
And I won the bet.
Yeah.
He didn't clarify that I had to be in the article. It was me writing the article.
Byline. Yeah. You won the bet.
I also lied about my age to get a job.
Don't lie, people. Don't lie.
Don't lie. I'm
the lawyer.
not
Don't lie.
advocating
It's not the
that.
takeaway.
I think that probably a lot of it was wanting financial independence from my parents, and that you can sort of create your own, you can make your own money, do what you want with it to some degree. And then this is the last thing I should say to a room of students, but I watched a lot of television. I watched a huge amount of television. So,
What was your favorite show?
Oh, I mean, it was, terrible TV. It was, Love Boat, Fantasy Island. Yeah. I mean, I watched reruns of Leave It to Beaver. I mean, just anything on television I would watch. Was very into MTV. Was relatively new at the time. Super obsessed with MTV. So it was, I grew up in suburban Colorado. It was a really good window into the world, and my brain did not melt. So that's how I spent a huge part, plus social life. And I think if social media had existed when I was at your age, it would have been hugely problematic. So.
I was into sports. I love sports. I was on the swim team. I was on our volleyball team. I mean, I loved anything physical. So I spent a tremendous amount of time in all the sports activities. It was a big part of who I was because, it's competition, which I love. It's winning, which I love. But it's also, everyone wants to win. But it was also just a great, it was a sisterhood. You're on a team. I especially love the team sports, the volleyball team. We would play other schools. I was on the track team. We would play other schools. It was just a great, great outlet. And one of the best things for me to watch my two daughters, because I think it's really helped shape who they are, is watching them in their sports endeavors. So my older daughter spent many, many, many years playing soccer. She played for the West Side Breakers. Probably some of you play for the West Side Breakers. A huge part of who she was, the team sport aspect. And then my younger daughter was a very, very passionate tennis player. So again, you have to give up a lot. You have to say no to parties. You have to say, allocate your time responsibly. So I'm a big fan of sports for all women.
I was a really shy kid, and
Until 18.
I didn't initiate that talk. He talked to me. But I was terrified to speak, and somehow we had speech competition at my school, and I ended up winning that speech competition and went on to the national competition and won the national competition totally out of fluke. So that kind of became my thing. And after that, I was offered a job to be on TV, Korean television, representing our generation. And the TV show was made for me called The Green Generation. So it was kind of a weird thing. And then once you're on TV as a teenager, then your life is over. I had no friends. That was my thing for a few years. But it's because I was just so shy, and I thought I could never speak in front of a public. And that challenge kind of became the real thing, and it helped me throughout my entire career, what I did in middle school. So whatever you learn today, it will really stick with you for the rest of your life, because our brain changes as we grow. And right now, your right brain, which has much longer memory and have a muscle memory, is much more stronger than your left brain. So whatever you learn, sports, art, singing, all the things that you're learning, it really becomes a part of you. And at that time, I didn't know, because I was a shy kid who couldn't talk, and I didn't know I was able to speak. And once I discovered that power, now I speak in front of 10,000 people, and I have absolutely no problem with it.
Yeah, I've never known not how to speak. I have a shy bone in my body. That could be my superpower. What is it like to be shy for the day? What does that feel like? I did theater as a kid. I was a double threat, not a triple threat. I cannot dance. I still cannot, maybe that's another superpower. I can still not dance to this day. And I was a jock as well. I played soccer from the time I was 6 through high school. Loved soccer. Thought it was a really sort of empowering and a great sort of escape and just in my own world. And I loved it. And I loved slide tackling. And I got red carded a lot. But I loved soccer. And I wanted to work as well, really, really young, but nothing as interesting as these ladies did. I worked at a tuck shop, you know, maybe when I was 12, because I thought it would be really interesting. I'd never been out with anyone who wore a tuxedo, so I thought it was sort of fascinating, everyone coming in and getting married and hearing these stories, and I'm measuring tuxmen, and it was a whole story, but it was a great way to figure out how do you deal with all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, because everyone needs to run a tux. So it was really, really interesting, and it gave me a real thirst for talking to a whole spectrum of folks from all different backgrounds.
That's awesome. We are going to wrap it up with a couple last questions. What advice would you give your middle school self?
I would say to my middle school self, have more fun. There's a lot of time to dig in and work, and it's really great in school to work, but you guys are getting ready to go on spring break. Have fun. I was the kind of middle school person who would like sit home and try to prepare for what was coming next. So that's what I would tell myself.
I would give my middle school self the advice to be brave, have fun, slow down, and it's all going to be okay.
I think my advice would be to fight your self-consciousness, and I think that's a very crippling thing, I think, at this age, and all, but it often extends into adulthood, where you become very consumed by your persona or what people think of you. And I guarantee you, no one really cares what you wear or what you said. And I think the whole idea of self-censorship to try to conform to something you think other people will judge you on is, you should try to let it go within polite bounds.
I think this is kind of encapsulating all what they've said. Don't worry so much. You know, I was so worried when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, worried about this, just worried about the day-to-day. We didn't have uniforms, unfortunately. I think I would have actually loved uniforms, because it just took away that whole, standing in front of your closet, what am I gonna wear, who am I gonna talk to, what am I gonna do? Don't worry so much. You guys are at the cusp of something that's so wonderful and fun, and you guys are just trying to figure everything out. Don't worry so much.
I'm going to give a totally different opposite. Because choose your friends mindfully. My mom chose all my friends. And at that time, I hated her for it. Because I would bring, like, a really cool girl home. She would ask, like, what's your grade? It's like, she doesn't even ask what her name is. So what's your grade? And then what does your parents do? And she asked like 10 questions before she passes, and then she would have dinner with her at the dinner table, watch her manners, and if she's rude, like, I can't play with her. And I hated my mother because she did not let me play with all the popular girls that I wanted to play with. But because of that, I learned how to choose my friends. And I think that's my biggest asset in life. And whoever you surround yourself with today, they are going to be your friends. I went back to Korea and just came back last Monday, and the friends I had in middle school, and I've been here since college, we're still great friends. We got together, and they're like the same girls that I grew up with. They haven't changed. And it's just so amazing. The core of who we are do not change. So I would say choose your friends mindfully. I did not know the value of my friends in middle school, and they were going to be my friends forever.
I've done this exercise in therapy, so I know what I would tell the younger me. And, you know, I would say you're really fabulous and you're really smart and you're really together. And this is all going to last a minute. And you're going to wake up and you're going to be 20 and you're going to wake up and you're going to be 30. And you will have, to your points, would have wanted to enjoy this and learned as much as you can and not really take on everyone else's baggage. And just know that you can own yourself and be yourself, and that is enough. And you don't have to be anyone else for anyone else. And if you can take away just that, so the next time someone says to you something that feels painful, know it's going to be a minute, and maybe know in 10 years you're going to be in a different place than they are, and that's going to be okay too.
Pain doesn't really last. It hurts and it stings, but it goes
I mean,
away.
I still have nightmares about high school. I'm just going to say, but it's worked out, not during the day.
All right, I think we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Happy spring break, everybody. Awesome. Happy Friday. Happy break. Awesome. Thank you, guys.